Welcome to another episode of Merill Macro Talks, the channel we discuss everything from the stock market to the global economics and how the world events affect your investment. Marc, your host, I'm a fund manager at Merill Funds. I've managed money from Geneva, London and Valletta for over than 20 years. We will guide you today in our journey in the northern part of Europe, a specific country that we appreciate for years since we launched and established our funds back 2016. I will speak about Norway. So today, like I said, we will go into a journey in the northern part of Europe, also a country who's very well known for its fjord and its sea. Before we start our investment journey, let me show you on the screen for a few seconds our disclaimer. I mean, definitely here we don't want to make any recommendations. You need to do your homework and assess your risk profile. If you want to get access to more insight, I invite you to join our LinkedIn page, Merill Investor, or our website, merillfunds.com. Hope to see you there soon. In our last episode, we went with you on this journey in Germany, in Japan. Like I say today, we will go to another very small nation, just 5 million inhabitants, but a very interesting one. So please join us. Today, for this part one, we will cover history, also the Central Bank of Norway, which is the Norges Bank, the sovereign wealth funds, and finally, economic figures. If it's your first time to hear about this country, and probably it's not, I also invite you to visit this country, which is a beautiful one. Had the chance several times to visit as a tourist this country, fantastic landscape and fjord. Let me provide you a little bit of historical context about Norway. As we know, Norway started its journey be a part of Denmark, and after it moved to Sweden. So really, Norway started its real journey as a nation back to 905. Now, 905, after that, 1945, Norway maintained a neutrality in the World War, but also been occupied by the Germans during the World War II. Like many other countries after the Second World War, they received a financing from US with the Marshall Plan, which has been helping Norway to reshape its economy. So I think one of the milestones here is back to 1969 when they discover a massive oil reserve in Norway, and it was creating a boom here. And at that moment, the Norwegian society started to think and say, maybe it's the right moment to set up an investment and a sovereign fund like Kuwait did in 1955. In our modern day, central bank is a pillar of the economy. Now, the history of the Norwegian Central Bank, the Norges Bank, back to 1816, when it was the first time established, have been issuing its own currency. On that side, I can tell you, they issued in 1817 their first currency. Back at that time, they be a part of Denmark, as we said. Now, they established the 1875, the gold standard. That was the first part. And they get independent clearly from the political parties in 1950s. The discovery of a massive oil reshaped clearly the economy in 1970s. And at that moment, the Norwegian society started to think we need to set up something, a sovereign wealth funds, but under the supervision of the central bank. The Norwegian central bank has the same mandate than many central banks in our world, which is stabilization of the inflations, but also control of the stability of the financial stability of the system. Now, the current situation is not so rosy as we could expect. Inflation is still quite high in Norway, and unemployment also quite high. Like many central banks, the target is always reaching the 2%, but at the moment, the inflation is more around 4.5%. One of the pillars of the Norwegian economy is the sovereign funds. And probably As you know, the sovereign fund is the biggest in the world, with like surpassing $1 trillion back 2017. But I want to read to you the objective of these sovereign funds. The fund aims to safeguard and build financial wealth for future generations. It achieves this long-term management of revenue from Norway oil and gas resource. And I think it's very interesting also the investment approach. They are invested in a small stake in about 9,000 companies worldwide, including like blue chip, like giants like Microsoft, Apple. On average, they own 1.5% of all these listed companies. They spread across 72 countries, and they get really a broad exposure. Primarily, they invest in equities, bonds, and real estate. But I think the important things to notice here is the ESG components. Even us as a fund manager, ESG, it's a part of our journey. Nowadays, we need to get responsibility where we put our money. So the sovereign funds have been putting some ESG criteria requiring companies to set annual KPI for climate transitions, align executive pay with this target. The fund disinvests from 86 companies due to ESG risk. Impacting the equity portfolio was minimal. ESG nowadays, it's a part of our journey, and everyone needs to take into the account these factors. And clearly, the Norwegian sovereign funds with more than 1 trillion asset under management can dictate where you want to invest and force some company to go in a certain direction. Now, let's explore, and you will see on your screen here, the GDP figures. We will start with the real one, as you can see. So that's the path of Norwegian's gross domestic product. I will say quite stable here. We are around 2%, except if we think about the boost received during the COVID. Let's go now about inflation. I think inflation, it still remains a concern for Norway. As we know, they also imported a lot, but they also exported salmon, and we will discuss later on. So as we said, the confidence index is not at the top, but the PMI, it's still above 50. And as we know, above 50, it means like we are not in contractions. Below 50, we're in contractions. So the economy, the Norwegian economy, it's still doing okay, I will say. And employment, it's quite high, I will say, compared to his neighbor Scandinavian country, but it's at 4%, I will say. And it stays stagnant at that level. And that's why the Central Bank of Norway need to fight inflation, but also need to take care of this high level of unemployment, which is like 4%. Definitely it's relative, because 4% it's not a high level. I mean, but if you compare, for example, for a country which is outside of the European Union, which is Switzerland, the unemployment is around 3.2, 3.5, just to compare. I hope you appreciate this part one, this journey. We have been going into the directions of the macro factors, the macro figures, I would say, but also discover two pillars of the Norwegian economy, which is the central bank and the wealth funds, the sovereign wealth funds, which is, I will repeat, the biggest in the world, with surpassing $1 trillion. So hope to see you soon for the part two. Thank you.